And welcome to the November 2021 edition of the Meeting of Membership Minds. And welcome everyone here to talk about stuff that membership professionals talk about. Anything that you have on your mind that you would like to discuss related to membership development, recruitment, retention, engagement, all those buzzwords. I'm busily trying to make sure that we have our renewals ready to go for a new calendar year, which is our membership cycle. And it's definitely always later than I want it to be. I want it to be earlier than just the month before the end of the membership cycle. But this is kind of tradition and something that they've always wanted us to keep it on that schedule. So.
What does your back end look like, Dan, in terms of if you're starting 30 days out, do you have a lot of sort of recapture type stuff you do in the, the minus 30, minus 60 day period normally? Or?
Yeah, I mean, throughout the year, we try to, share with them what their participation levels are because it's a trade association. We want to make sure everyone is aware that of who's involved, what they're involved in, and whether it's committees or share groups and things like that. It's so we try to do that type of thing, throughout the year. So it's not just, hey, when we're renewing, we want to talk to you about the value. But mostly it's, leading up to it, I'm trying to make sure that they are aware that, hey, this is going to come to the end at the end of this end of the calendar year, and we want we just want you to be aware that the renewal is on its way. Is that what you're asking about, the back ends?
Well, more the back end of because you're starting the cycle so late. Are people kind of responding quickly to pay, or do a lot of them,
Right.
pay in the sort of well beyond the deadline?
Yeah, this is going to be my third time, even though I haven't been there 2 years. Like, I got in February 2020. Excuse me, and so I was trying to create a renewal cycle or renewal series and communications that really weren't planned out or scheduled. It was just kind of willy-nilly, like, okay, I guess we should send another message because we haven't received these payments. So this year I really focused on one of my goals. Actually, my performance goals was to bring in more renewals sooner, and because it lingered into late into 2020 to get those renewals in. And there's a lot of factors, obviously, back in 2020 around that. But for 2021, I made it a goal to say, hey, I want to show, and I had stats, I developed the stats of like, when did our renewals come in throughout the year? And so for the first quarter, it was my goal to get over 80% of our renewals in by the end of the first quarter. And we got, and I beat, January over January from 2020 to 2021, and February was a great month. It spiked up even more based on all those reminders I sent out and messaging and just follow up. We do a lot of phone and email follow up, one-on-one basically, and because we have our staff members are account managers for certain members. So I have like 40 accounts that I follow up on regularly throughout the year. Others will have, their set of accounts. And so that's something that we just had a communications directly with them during that time period too. So it's kind of part of the renewal series or, system that we have in place. But yeah, and of course, we still have some that linger, and it's all based on whether they, it fits within their cycles and their, budgeting schedule. So, but this year we did much better. Last year, we still had like a half dozen members. We still weren't sure whether they're going to renew. They told us they were going to renew, and nothing really happened, and we ended up dropping them. This year, we don't maybe have one that we're still is kind of an unknown. So that's I feel like we've made some good progress on that this year, even though it doesn't seem like much, but every little step of the way it helps. Anyone
Well,
else having those type of issues?
Well, Dan, I had a question for you. What's the reluctance to start earlier? Because you said it's kind of been always the way they've done it. That doesn't mean it's the
Yeah, I know.
right
And
way to do it.
I'm working on that. You know, I always hate that too, but it's, you know, sometimes it takes some time to you know, move the needle on that. So I think the reluctance is that well, one of the issues is that we base our dues on the sales figures from the previous calendar year. So these, when I send out a renewal in December, they don't even have completed sales figures to work with in calculating their dues. For the most part, they could probably project it and give us a ballpark that they work off of to develop, you know, to generate a dues rate for them for the year. But for the most part, I think that's the reluctance, is that why, you know, we can't really ask them to renew a membership back in September or October when they haven't even, you know, when we're just getting into the fourth quarter of the year that we're asking them to use as a sales figure. Now, you know, I've been through this a lot with them to say, okay, maybe we should, you know, make the dues rate based on a different schedule of sales, you know, that more it's like, you
Or the
know,
dues year different.
Yeah. Right.
say that again.
Or the dues year different.
Dues year different? What do you
Yeah,
mean?
so go from like March to March, so you get
Right, that's what I'm
yeah.
saying. It's that, you know, a different cycle rather than a calendar cycle on sales. In fact, many of them do that anyways. You know, I think they go through September as the end of their fiscal year, and then they start over in October. So I threw that out there, and it's difficult because they all are different as far as the way they calculate their sales, and they don't usually calculate it in the way that we want to anyways, as far as, you know, sales figures. When you're dealing with like an Amazon or Walmart, it's going to be difficult to even get those figures anyways. And for the most part, you know, we might get half of them sending back an actual sales figure. You know, they'll send us dues, but they won't actually tell us the data because they're private companies in most cases, and a lot of times they're not even comfortable sharing that. So so yeah, there's a lot of back and forth around that, and I'd really like to push to get it to happen sooner. But to me, it's almost like just shifting the renewal cycle anyways. That like when I send something out in December, that's like 30 days before the real expiration, you know, where we actually would drop them at all or go into a grace period. You know, so the grace period or the expiration date really ends up being like March 31st. And then we have, you know, more of a grace period up until the middle of the year, and then it's time to drop them. Because that's really the reality of how we're dealing with it anyways. We keep them active through even, you know, the first half of the year if we haven't received dues. So. That makes sense.
Has your membership been impacted by COVID?
Our membership? Yeah, actually, FMI, the food industry, actually has been impacted, but in a very positive way. You know, I mean, 2020 was the best sales year they've ever experienced as an industry. Now, you know, that's saying one side of it. You know, they have very slim margins, so it's not like the industry is flush with, you know, lots of profit. They're flush with cash, but they're not flush with profit. They had a lot more expenses, even, you know, just dealing with things. And then, you know, right now, you know, they're just dealing with really bad shortages in staffing, a lot of overtime pay and that type of thing, and a very taxed workforce right now. You know, they are at the end of their stamina, I guess. But yeah, it's been impacted positively in a lot of positive ways, but negatively in other ways. I mean, right now we're dealing with this mandate, you know, the Biden's emergency temporary standard that says any companies with 100 more than 100 employees have to, you know, are mandated, you know, that they're all vaccinated, or they have to go through all this testing on a regular basis. And they're making these companies, the government's basically making these companies do this, and yet they have no guidance on it. You know, OSHA's basically said you have to do this, and there are all these questions about, well, who foots the bill for all that testing? You know, and you know, who's going to what do we do if someone doesn't comply? Are we down another worker? And if so, do they get unemployment if they get released or not? I mean, there's a ton of questions around this that no one's answering. And so I don't think that standard is going to go through at all. But for the most part, they're dealing with a lot that way. But yeah, there's, when you say impacted, there's a lot of types of impact, the industry has. But for the most part, if you want to look at it that way, we're actually better off because of the pandemic versus some other industries that are much worse off, so lucky that way, I guess.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, food industry, people have to eat, and if restaurants all close down, where are they going to go to get food,
Right.
So. Anyone else having issues with their renewals or, making wholesale changes to their series or anything, their system?
Our renewals are sucking wind right now. And I think I haven't had time to go look. My guess is, we had a lot of people, we're medical writers.
Mhm.
And so we had a lot of people, we call our new people Natalie newbies. And our goal for a number of years is to get qualified Natalie newbies, because people are like, well, I like to write. I can work with this, I'll have do it as a side gig. And it's not that easy. You can't just, And so I'm wondering, we did fine last year. We had a lot of new members. And my guess is these are those new members from a year ago dropping off now when they realize that this is not a fun stay-at-home job that's just easily picked up because they like writing. So I got to look into that. But I'm like, ugh. But our member numbers continue to go up. So that's good. So we're getting new members. Hopefully qualified people. We'll see. I feel like just ignoring it because
So-
deal with it.
So Sharon, are you saying that the renewals that are sucking wind are mostly because of the new members?
That is my guess. It's always, like most places, the first year members that are harder to retain.
Yeah, for sure.
And my guess, I haven't had time to really dig back in, but my guess is it's a lot of those first year, and that a lot of those first years are our, I'm going to try this new profession. I'm going to try and make some extra money during COVID, blah, blah, blah. So, well, hopefully that's what it is.
So I'm going to build on that a little bit. We're getting squeezed on both ends of that right now, because what we're seeing is a lot of retirement.
Us
on
too.
the top end of our membership, and we have a significant number of members who have been with the organization 20 plus years. So we're starting to see those people, retiring and leaving the profession. And yeah, we do have a retiring category and all that, but a lot of them are just, I'm done. They've been tapped out the last 2 years. So they're like, they're walking away. And the good news is that our new member acquisition is really strong. Last year we had about, we're an 10,000 member organization. We had about 1,200 new members last year. And we had a goal this year of getting 100 new members every month. So we just passed that. In fact, we're at 110% already for this year in new member acquisition. So similar to Sharon, we're going to be watching those to see, can we improve the renewal rate on those folks, because we're not having a problem bringing them in. We just want to make sure that we retain them. So we've done a little bit of data analytics around that and trying to build. This is the first time for our organization is very new on the data side, but we did an analysis to look at, because we're primarily an education-based organization, whether or not earning credits, consuming the education impacts our renewals. And we found that it does, so that's good. So we're going to be putting in some new touch points with the members, but we were more surprised at who that impacts. We would have thought one membership category would have been more impacted by that. And the data shows that it's actually a different membership category, which I thought was kind of interesting. But yeah, it's been tough because we've been worried about that first year renewal rate. And now we're seeing the top end kind of not come back because of retirement.
So,
We've always had that as well. We go through phases where we see retirement, and we definitely are seeing more in this last year of
Yeah.
retiring. And but like Peter, we're averaging 150 new members every month.
That's great.
It's really conference brings some in because I get a membership, so it's really more than 27, but that's still a good number. But I mean, this is sort of pre-pandemic, a couple of years pre-pandemic problem of we need to try and get these qualified people who are going to stick around. And we started using HubSpot and doing a lot of inbound marketing and, you know, trying to help us weed people out and blah, blah, blah. So that's going well. But I do think I think during the pandemic, we sort of did get a lot of the less qualified members that are going to drop off for sure. But, you know, I always want more member benefits too, but I can't always convince everybody else.
So can I just ask, like, in general, people, are you guys, so again, we're starting, which I'm sure most of you guys are having or moving back to in-person meetings, in-person events. So I kind of, and we haven't really looked at this, whether or not the digital meetings had a negative impact on membership, because it's a little more, I don't know, for us, those digital meetings just weren't as high profile as the in-person meetings. So I don't know. So we'll be watching that too, because Q1 for us are our two biggest in-person meetings. And right now they're planned to be in person. So we're also hoping that helps drive some membership. I don't know if others had.
We just had our annual conference and it was virtual. It was just at the end of October. So we plan in 2022 to be in person next November, but that's Nationals only in-person meeting. Our chapters though, you know, I think that could be hurting some, not having some local networking opportunities for people in person. But then, you know, we also have our chapter leaders and people saying, oh, these, you know, virtual is great because our chapter is so big. They cover huge areas. So, you know, everybody can come, but, you know, who knows?
yeah, I haven't seen any impact of the virtual on recruitment or not. I think for the in-person that's coming back for us in January, and definitely is going to be in person. There's been maybe a couple, you know, that we've gotten new because they want to participate in that. So they're doing that so they can register and be a part of it. So, but for the most part, I haven't seen anything, you know, significant as far as recruitment related to that. I'm curious though, for Pete or Sharon, you know, what do you attribute the spike in recruitment this year? Is there specific campaigns that you did or anything going on in your industries that would actually be a purpose for that spike?
On our side, it's just been, we've spent more time doing it.
Okay.
I mean, truthfully.
So more effort in the recruitment side.
More effort on the recruitment side. And then for us too, we've been spending more time on the reinstatement side.
Okay.
So these are in essence lapsed members. And so like anything, right? You spend time, you hopefully see results. And for us, you know, only some time, so we're in some results.
Yeah, we started using HubSpot in 2019, fall of 2019, so just about 2 years ago. And I think, you know, we're just reaching so many more people. We've created a ton of inbound marketing resources that's attracting attention. So I think that's definitely helps us in general, you know, even, you know, before the pandemic. I think that's really gained some traction for us.
So that's a good, so there is one thing that we started doing, which is appending records, right, with emails. So we have, you know, going through our database records and finding those folks that don't have email addresses, and then so going through that process of appending. So I think that's helped a little bit. So we have additional contact information for a lot of people in our database that we didn't have a year ago.
Yeah, we have surprisingly decent, I shouldn't say that because I do the data, surprisingly decent data on our people, like very few bounce backs. We have a pretty clean database, which is nice.
So from a system standpoint, we're getting ready to roll out an email automation system. And I'm very excited about the possibilities for membership in terms of, being able to have a more personalized touch point with folks, but the data part, I'm worried about if we have the data to back it up. And I'm curious, has anybody used those types of systems in the past or is currently? And I don't know if there are any just lessons as we're getting ready to do this, I'd be appreciative.
Well, what type of data are you looking for in terms of this?
I think we still don't really know. Our communications director is leading it, and I'm ready to jump in when we're needing the data, but I don't know that that's fully been answered, and that's part, I think, why I'm nervous. We're going to be able to
data like
build new texts. We're going to be able to have things pop up on the website. It's going to be great, but and do more targeted. You bought this webinar over here. You might be interested in this article. I'm very excited, but the data piece is just making me very nervous. And I know, like, for instance, I know we don't have cell numbers on our members. I know we don't. I'm not convinced they log in consistently from an IP address that we can trust, because they work in hospitals, so they're going to be on different machines at different times. I don't know what we don't know right now, and it's all just making me nervous.
Well, it sounds. Oh, sorry.
No, I was gonna say, we started collecting, we had pretty good demographic questions. And then when we started with HubSpot, we're using a marketing partner, we're not working directly with HubSpot, but when we started that, before we even, started using it, we started collecting more data, and just did some campaigns. And when we first launched with HubSpot, we reached out through HubSpot saying, fill out this information, that kind of stuff. That then down the road gave everybody a persona, so we could identify them, identify which materials they needed, what smart contents. We started using smart content in some of our stuff. So yeah, it was sort of we had to capture some new data in order to, identify what persona they were, what industry they were working in. Your industry is pretty, they're all very similar, I think, in your industry. So we've got regulatory, and we've got freelance, and we've got educators. So for smart content purposes, we needed to get all that kind of stuff. So sort of collecting data before we even started the automation stuff.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It might be good to have a like a demographic or a data collection campaign first. You could even, already have that information set up for them and just say, hey, this is the information we have on file, and then have someone either correct it or, add the information that you don't have. And then you can then say, also let them know that the information you're collecting, how it's going to help them. We want to be able to reach you to let you know about more programs that, or, you've been to this program, so we think you might be interested in that.
Yeah,
but I think that would be good to maybe start and with your baseline of, hey, I have this information, and then let them fill in the information you don't have. And then you can kind of segment them into your, okay, well, we have these phone numbers, so now we're going to enroll them in text marketing. I mean, I don't know if you would message them first, or then say, hey, if you don't want to continue to receive text messages from us, then, hit stop or say stop, whatever you want to do. But then you can kind of segment based on that information that you already have.
Yeah, Megan, the other thing, sorry, Sharon, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, we always say, fill out, and we didn't have to fill out a ton. So half of it we already had, but some of the new fields, the more important of the new fields, like it was a quick pop-up, and it was like, fill out 3 pieces of information. And we're always kind of reminded them, it's so we want to get to know you, and it's so we can provide information that's interesting to you. So you got to make, so they know it's of benefit to them, not us. It is to us, obviously, but we don't tell them that part.
And what I was going to say, Megan, is a lot of this is your strategy. It's what are you guys going to do with the data, right? Like, why do you need it? It's sort of like, I compare it to, 15 years ago now, when the grocery stores used to all collect everything that we purchased, and they made us log in every time, put your phone number and everything. And then you'd get ads for stuff that you've never purchased a day in your life. And you kind of go, well, you guys are collecting all of this information. Why don't you push stuff at me that I'm actually buying? So it's, what is the strategy behind it? Because there's ways that you can overlay and not have to ask your members for all that information. You can overlay it and get that data from other sources. I would
Yeah.
highly recommend that if you do that, you do ask for permission, especially with texting. You know, like don't just start texting them out of the blue, because it's sort of like email used to be, and email is not anymore, where it's like, don't send me a text message because now you're invading my personal space. Well, it's
Right.
like, am I really? No, because you're getting a text message from everybody in the world, and just type in stop. It's not hard, just type in stop. But yeah, I think you just need to figure out, what are you guys trying to activate? What are you trying to do? And then determine what data you really need to have versus kind of what's nice to have.
Yeah,
I'm a
no,
big,
Scott, I
don't
would
collect it. Yeah, unless you're going to use it.
exactly. I mean, I was going to say the exact same thing, because I don't know how many times I've eliminated survey questions from people. I'm like, we have this. Why are we asking?
Yeah.
We have the data, right? Don't ask them, when was the last time you came to a course? Like, we have that, you know. And most recently for us, it's been facts, right? We don't collect that anymore because we don't use it.
Yeah.
We don't use it, and nobody sends us. I mean, I think we get one fax, I don't know, every month or something now. So we've just scrapped that. So again, I think to Scott's point, it's like understanding why you're collecting the data you're collecting. And if you aren't going to use it, or you don't foresee being able to use it, then you probably don't need to collect it, at least not now.
Yeah.
And like data that's like outdated tomorrow. You know, they used to ask, how long have you been? And I'm like, well, that's just outdated tomorrow. You know what I mean? You know, so you know, that doesn't help.
I have a question in terms of data collection. So that's one of our new initiatives for the upcoming year. But do you advise, or do you think it's better to send someone an email that says, you know, we're collecting all this information, fill out section A, B, C, D, or do you reckon, like, so telling them all up front all the information that we want, or to send it to them in targeted communication? So say, for example, you know, this is our personal demographic. Now we want to know about more about your agency, or now we want to know more about, you know, what type of lines of insurance you sell. That's my industry, is insurance. But we're trying to figure out, it's kind of unfortunate because the process for someone to give that information is a little clunky and cumbersome. So while I want to tell them this is all the information that we're collecting, I tend to think it would be better to send them individualized emails about each topic. But I want to know, like, what do you guys think? Because sometimes they say, oh, just give them the whole well, or give them, you know, bites of the apple. So I'm just trying to figure out, what do you guys think?
And they see in our AMS, unfortunately, they can't just go update 3 pieces. When they go in, they got to go through their entire profile, which is kind of annoying. But when we started using HubSpot, we started putting pop-ups where they in a form where they could just fill out the form of those 3 pieces we were trying to gather, the 3 most important for us to launch our inbound marketing program. Then we dumped it back into our database. So would they be going directly into their profile, or?
They would, but it would be more like, part 1 is, you know, update your demographics. And there's a specific page that allows them to update their demographics. Then part 2 would say, you know, tell me your lines of insurance. And it's just too clunky for them to click around to find it. Like, they would have to go back to the email to even see the instructions to tell them how to update those, you know, different lines of insurance. So that's why I was thinking maybe a targeted email would be better, but I also don't want to inundate people with emails versus, you know, just showing them all at once the type of information we want to collect. So I'm just not really sure what's the best method.
Do all your members answer all of those buckets of information, or is some of it only relevant to certain people?
Well, I don't know. That's because, well, first, we've never really collected this information. So that's the first thing. And then also our members join at the state level. So some states might collect that information, but they don't report it to us. So we've thought about, you know, kind of going back to our affiliates and doing an information share, or say, okay, you know, this is the information we're going to start collecting. If you have that information, share it with us. But we also want to reach out to those people directly. So
It's
have individual member profiles, but then we also have clinical program profiles, academic program profiles, and everyone has an individual, but very few people are actually responsible for the other groups. So we've kept it all very separate and have completely separate profile pages that they're filling out. And we do it at different times of the year, so we don't survey fatigue folks, but that works because not everybody needs to answer all of it, but it might be different for you.
Well, that's a good point. Like for the personal demographics, I think that would be important. Like if, let's say we did an agency spotlight or like an agent spotlight. But like information about the agency itself, I think that would be best coming from the owner. Like I wouldn't want staff to come in because they all have different ideas of probably even what we're asking. But still, you know, I'm going to ask everyone the personal demographic information. So maybe, you know, that's two different paths. So it's, hey, you're all agents, you get this personal demographic question, but then you don't get the other questions about lines of insurance, but the agency owner continues down that path. Maybe that's something like that, but it's still just is it best to ask them all of the questions all at once or to do it, you know, segmented?
Dana, I would give you a real biased answer here, but you're kind of answering your own question anyway, because you've got such a mix of people. And since we do a lot of survey work with the IIAs, the Independent Insurance Associations, you know, there's such a huge difference in terms of what a producer, you know, or a CSR versus, you know, a company owner is going to tell you and what they are responsible for telling you. Because the couple of times way back before I became a research consultant, I was on your side of the fence, you know, I inherited a demographic database that was like maybe 25% complete. And the way that you get at, you know, increasing its coverage, even if it's dated data, it's better than having no data at all, is you just go and you continue to pound the people who haven't answered specific fields. And so you almost need to sort of work backwards here. Take the data that you already have and set it up in, you know, an online survey tool and say, here are the fields we have, and, you know, have some, you know, hide or reveal conditions, you know, that apply to if the person says that they're a principal in the company or if they're just a schmo, and then go ahead and administer it to them, and then take the data you have and go selectively, you know, put that back in your AMS. Because what you're describing right now is almost like guaranteed to convince like those diligent members that respond to your message to think you don't know what you're doing, because they're having to go to 3 or 4 places, you know, in your database, try to find a different screen to enter it. You could make that so much more user friendly for them. And even if it's hard to you know, to import the data that you collect later, or you have to, you know, hire a temp or someone to go rekey that stuff. I'd rather be redundant on the back end where they don't see it than to be on the front end, sending out messages to everybody, including those who have populated data and those who don't, ask them to populate the stuff they need to populate when they may not know what they need to populate. It just seems so much easier for you to, you know, just survey the people who have incomplete data, you know, export the data you got, and set up the survey tool to show what you already know about them. That way they can correct some things if it's dated information, they need to replace it. So
yeah, that's a good idea.
I completely agree with what Kevin's saying too. Is the one thing I always, you know, try to strive for is to make sure that we reflect back to them what we already have. So it's not like they have to fill in fields that we already have that information, you know. So if you have information, it's great for the at least say, is this right? And if not, can you update us and you know, and fill in the gaps. Yeah, it's 6 after right now if anyone needs to go, but I just wanted to say thanks. And this is a great topic. I think we can continue discussing this. Next month, I think we're not going to have a meeting of the membership minds. We just ended up booking a vacation right over that. So so a needed vacation. So
you don't want to log in from Cancun? I mean, I think it'd be kind of fun.
I can. I can if you want. I just don't want to, you know, make anyone. We're going to be on a cruise, so it might be a little, you know, make people seasick or something. So, but and you know, the one thing I want to say about the data also before we kind of wrap up is just, you know, I've always expressed to members when they complained about issues like that, or, you know, saying, why do you need this or whatever, I always tell them, look, the last thing we want to hear from our members is that they weren't informed. And this is just our way of making sure that you're informed of everything you need to be informed of as part of your membership. And it really helps calm them down, or at least gives them the feeling that, okay, the data I'm giving them is really for me and what I need to get out of this membership. And it's almost like in asking for it, you want to give them that sense of FOMO. You don't want to be missing out on anything, as far as part of your membership. So make sure that we have everything we need to make sure that to include you. That to me is kind of and then there are times where you have to kind of start using incentives too, if you really want that complete. I'm like getting those cell phone numbers. That could be a challenge, but maybe an incentive to complete that one little piece. But you should, Megan, I would, you're right to be worried. And I mostly worry about email addresses. And if I can at least get a current and accurate email address, then we can go from there. So especially if you're dealing with those, the platforms that you're talking about. But great, great discussion. Thank you all for a great conversation. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and very thankful for these meetings that we have each month. So I hope that we can continue them in 2022.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Sounds good.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah,
Happy
thanks,
holidays,
everybody.
everybody. All right.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.